we would like to speak briefly on the flame of reality, because I do not think that most of us are able to come out of the consciousness that we think is so closely our own, which is more or less a cocoon that's wrapped around us like a shroud, and be able to grasp the flame of reality. The reality is God and nothing else, but He comes in so many guises. He comes to us as mother and father, you know. When we are children, God is in our mother and father, whether we realize it or not, and whether they realize it or not. The father plays the role of God, and the mother plays the role of the Divine Mother. And the little child feels secure, or should feel secure, in the environment of home, in the environment that promises very little in this present time, except to grow up, hopefully, to get a good job, and to earn a great deal of money, and perhaps find a beautiful wife, a fairy princess somewhere, that will bring absolute beautiful happiness into manifestation, and fulfill the desires of the heart. And all of these things seem to be the goals that young people are hopefully fulfilling, that somehow or other, as they look at the elders of the race, the older people, they do not seem quite convinced of as being the answer. In other words, they know in their own hearts that their parents do not seem to have the elixir of life or of happiness. They know in their own hearts that the promises of the age are often empty. They know that even religion in many cases is not satisfying, because it does not bring them the nectar, the divine nectar of truth. So the eternal search goes on. And in this day and age, when the bazaars and marketplaces of the world are filled with such a variety, an endless variety of things, I think of Robert Louis Stevenson's poem, "The world is so full of a number of things, I am sure we should all be as happy as kings." And then we see the palling of all of this upon the consciousness, and people find that each little hill of desire or hope, when they reach it, doesn't seem to lead to anything at all except the thirst of more desire, which one hopes will at last fulfill the hidden longings of the heart, the gnawing and the anguish that man wants something and doesn't know what it is that he wants. But what is it that man really wants? It is integration with reality. It is the flame of reality that he wants, that he needs, that he thirsts for, and that thirst cannot be quenched. But the thirst does not necessarily elevate us to the position of finding what we're seeking for. And I think the greatest tragedy of all is that what we are seeking for is right within us all the time. I know there is a story to the effect that a man searched everywhere for gold in the world, and he couldn't find it in any of the mountains or anywhere he looked, and then suddenly in his own backyard he found a gold mine. And while this is a very common illustration, it is still very effective in conveying to us that many times the things that we are looking for are right within our reach and grasp, but we simply don't see it. And so what I would like to convey to you tonight is the need to understand and reach out and pull on the garments of the Divine Mother. Do you know why you have a pair of lungs and a voice when you're born? So that you can attract the attention of your mother. The cry that a baby makes when he is first born, the first cry of a baby, what is that cry? Ma, isn't it? Mama. You listen sometime to a little baby, and practically always, even before the little baby knows what he is crying for or knows the meaning of the word mother, and this is Mother's Day after all, we realize then that Mama is the natural sound that the Holy Spirit makes through the little baby, calling for its mother. And the mother comes, and there is a flame of comfort that surrounds the baby that seems to quiet this little one and bring peace to its heart, because only the mother has the magnetic flame of the feminine part of God within her that can surround that child with a feeling of comfort and insulate that child from the world. Now, the world order is an ogre of terrible and frightful descriptions. And today, since the opening of Pandora's box through the Astral, starting with Sir Conan Doyle and his early experiments in spiritualism, and starting also with the activities of the Fox sisters, we find that more and more people have opened and ruptured the fine protective membrane that insulates this world of sensory perception from the astral horrors of the netherworld. Now, what is the astral horrors of the netherworld, and what is the netherworld? The netherworld of which I'm speaking is that realm in which all of the thoughts of humanity of a negative description from the foundation of the earth to the present hour are stored as thought forms with a decay rate. You know that atomic structure, atomic substance, has a decay rate. Recently, when they injected one of our staff members here with a radioactive isotope, they told him that it had a life of 6 hours. And at the end of 6 hours, the isotope would no longer be affecting him. Of course, I don't agree with them, but that's what they told him, so he believes it. The whole idea is that radioactivity does, of course, have a decay rate. We know that this is true. And so, astral creation of thoughts, the creation of hideous forms, such as you see in some of the ancient Tibetan art forms and other forms throughout the world. Horrible creations. These are often floating in the astral world as matrices. They're there, and they have a decay rate. Well, how long is the decay rate? It doesn't make any difference. You know why? Because people have seen to it that these forms are traced somewhere in the world, and people see these forms and they recreate them and energize them again and again. And thus we have perpetuated a state of astral horror in the world. That is the substance from which nightmares are made. For most so-called nightmares, when you wake up screaming, or a little child wakes up with a terrible thought, many times made up of basic components that the child has never experienced. Do you understand me? I'm talking about a child who has never seen an animal, or a certain type of animal, in a vision, during a dream, seeing this animal, which shows the power of the thoughts of humanity to penetrate through the mind and perpetuate these horrible forms. Now, are you aware of the fact that so-called delirium tremens, which comes about through drunkenness, is nothing more than an opening of the consciousness into this astral realm of horror? As far as I'm concerned, this is the realm that you may well call hell. And it is the realm into which the unguided soul, the soul that has not been tutored while in life by the Master's consciousness or by the Master's teachings, can well find himself without the ability to extricate himself. Do you understand me? In other words, people wake up in these states and they can't get out of it. We teach here in this activity, in the course of our whole course, how to raise and elevate the consciousness, how to avoid entering into these traps, and how to keep the consciousness purified through the violet transmuting flame. We teach all kinds of beautiful principles. They are not conveyed in 1 hour. And tonight I will touch very lightly upon it, just to say that this is being taught. Today, these thought forms are being reproduced in an unusually proficient manner through the dangerous drugs which the world is now spreading among the young people. Now we know why they are spreading them. In years gone by, we did not have this exposure. What did we have when I was a boy? When I was a boy, we had Bull Durham and a few dirty books, but not too many. These were circulated in the back alley and probably in the 6th and 7th grade in school, not in the 1st and 2nd grade, 3rd grade. Probably when the person got to be 13, he might get a sack of Bull Durham and try a few cigarettes, and he might later become a cigarette fiend. Alcohol usually didn't enter the picture until someone was 17 or 18, and women probably came in around 15. But people didn't get too serious until they were 18 or even 20. It was just a little playing post office sort of thing. You know what I mean. This is the way they lived. Now, some of them are fathers, or should be, at 13, and mothers at 12. You don't see a lot of it, but it's going on all the time. It's a desecration of the ideals of the Spirit for the evolvement of people. But why is it going on? Do you know why? You remember Paine, who wrote Home Sweet Home? Do you know about the lost document? Do you know about the lost epic that he wrote? I have only fragments of it in my memory. Fragments gleaned from a stage star of long ago, who is probably 80 years old today, who played in The Miracle. She remembered some of these lines. It was a holiday in Rome. Old age forgot her crutches. All ran, mothers taking their children by the hand, pointed and said, "There lies Lucretia where she fell, the fairest flower of womanhood, trampled down into the dust." We have seen, with the coming of woman suffrage, the degradation of the feminine figure in the world. We have seen the use of women change from the holy instrument of motherhood to an instrument of desire and filth and immorality. We have seen the sacred acts by which children are produced made no longer sacred, but desecrated. And all of our civilization has plummeted into a pit which is now being fed by drugs and by very bad music, which the people who have never known good music cannot understand. Some actually take in and serve two masters. There are those who listen to the Beatles and the worst kind of music that we can objectify. And then they will listen to Brahms and Beethoven. No man can serve two masters. Sooner or later, man will cleave to one or the other. And in many cases, because of the trend of the times and the astral accumulation, we find that these people cannot resist. You must understand, they cannot resist giving way to this type of music. It is not music. It is noise. And it is noise with a beat. And the beat itself is tied to the heartbeat in many cases. Because by tying it to the heartbeat, we effectuate a control of the individual. Man today seeks freedom. They want freedom to know. Youth today are looking. They are looking into the world, into the universe, and trying to find the answers. The answers are not in freedom to do as you will. They are in freedom to do as God wills. You have a divine freedom. You can pervert it. You can change it into darkness. The light that is in you can become darkness. But when that darkness is magnified in you, you are not fulfilling the fiat of emancipation, but you are fulfilling the fiat of bondage. All desire creates bondage. And desire that creates bondage keeps man in a state of bondage where he must be reborn again and again upon this earth. Only when we are able to burn up desire and be master of it in all areas of our life, only then can we actually find liberation. What is it that makes bodies? Why do we have bodies in the first place? Because the body desires to eat, to reproduce itself. The ego needs to be separate because it wants to say, see, here I am. What does a little child do? The little child is an exhibitionist. Have you ever noticed this? How children like to show off and say, see, it's me. I'm doing this. Only God is doing anything. But we don't realize that. And so we take the divine energy, and we keep this divine energy imprisoned into false matrices. And we make this great liberated God, this great infinite power whose love has given us the energy to think, to feel, to be, to do, we make Him go through the rituals of doing errors in the world. Now God doesn't make errors, we do. But we take His energy, we take Him, and we drag Him into the mire, into the swamp. Yet in this swamp the lotus flower blossoms. In this swamp, God magnificence comes into view, and soul after soul finds liberation from bondage. This the great Masters promise. And I can tell you, I have seen that they fulfill their promises. There is never any doubt that the Masters know what they're doing. It would be so wonderful if religion were not reduced to a ritual, if it was not reduced to some form of human standard, some code of conduct written down that people seem to feel is binding upon them. Because true religion is of the heart. It is of the spirit of man. It does not imprison man, it frees man. And this is what we are offering through the teachings of the Masters in the Summit Lighthouse. We are offering the power of the Holy Spirit to man, whereby he can be liberated from all dense desires and eventually find his way home to God. But it will not happen overnight. It is not going to be tied to one cosmic event. A man can receive the Spirit of God. He can receive a gift from God. He can receive all kinds of blessings. But these blessings are not the fulfillment of the path at the end of the road. This takes time. If it doesn't take time, it takes eternity. You understand this? I mean, time and eternity, what are they? Well, as I see it, time is a little chip, a fragment of eternity. Remember, eternity has an infinite number of chips, whereas time has a finite number of chips. That's the difference. It's essential that we realize that. We can go on forever recreating bondage and desire. We can live in this world and just keep on slaves of our own desire. But when we become free from it, and only through the Christ can we become free from it, when we do become free from it, we're going to find that we have the greatest happiness, the greatest joy, and the greatest expression of our reality right then and there. That's what the great Masters have. They have that universal vitality, that universal magnetism, universal joy that we all really want. This is what we're hungry for. This is what the young people are hungry for today. What are they getting? They're getting astral horrors, psychicism, witchcraft, variance, strife, necromancy, ancestor worship, everything you can think of, pride, snobbery, snob appeals, everything that is binding and deceitful. And the truth of the Christ, the liberating force of the light, that is like a tender vine growing through a rock, that has the power to split the rock, this is ignored. People do not have these vital experiences because they do not seek them. And why don't they seek them? Because they don't realize they exist. through the masters of wisdom, they are able to give you the teachings of your liberation. And I mean all the way to the heart of the central sun from whence you came. It's all there in the teaching.